And so you mentioned that there were some accusations about your past drug use.
Mm-hmm.
I've read some things about it being drug use that week, the week the children went missing. Is there any truth to that?
No, I didn't have any drugs. And Major Crimes knows that. Or they would have, charged me with possession of drugs or drug paraphernalia. There was nothing at the house. So, and they know that.
What is your history in terms of the drug use? What would you like to share, just to clear the air?
I did not have any drugs. People thought I was doing drugs during the search. Absolutely not. I don't owe any drug dealers money. I don't owe anyone drugs. I'm not a drug dealer. I don't manufacture drugs. Can't really speak on anything more than that, I guess.
Those have been all the accusations made at you?
That I have, manufactured drugs, sell them. I give them to people to sell. It's crazy.
There was no drug party that night?
No, there was no drug party. There was no leaving during the middle of the night. When we pulled into the yard on Thursday afternoon, it would have been about 3:50 or just right before 4 o'clock. The vehicle did not move till the next morning.
Now that comment, there was no leaving in the middle of the night, could have, in context, been a signal for her to move the questioning onto that topic, had he stopped there. But he then went on to give all this additional information. So this wasn't about signalling this is what I would like to discuss next. This was taking control of the conversation and giving all this detail that she did not request. She didn't even bring the vehicle up in the first place. But for him to bring it up in terms of, this is one allegation, this is another. Had he stopped there, you could go, okay, well, clearly it's on his mind, but he's let the interviewer take control again. But he's the one here that took control. And of course, we're seeing all the signs that we quite often see from Daniel that show deception. So again, the pauses in between words, we get the lizard lips happening, and you get this whole wordsmith thing going on. So he starts with, when we pulled into the yard on Thursday afternoon. Why did he need to clarify that it was Thursday afternoon? Because the narrative that's been put out there, the only thing we've heard would suggest that that's the only time that they went out as a family. There's been no discussion of them going out any other time. What we're seeing here is he's taking up the script again. And when someone is working from a script, it is hard for them to edit the script. So in his brain, the way the script goes is it starts with them arriving home Thursday afternoon. And then we're going to hear the continuation of the script from there. So this wasn't about offering clarification for the listener. This was about getting himself back into the script. This was about finding where in the script that he wanted to start his story. Again, his times aren't overly accurate. He says 3:50 or just before 4 o'clock. Well, 3:50 is just before 4 o'clock, doofus. And then there's this audible intake of breath and, of course, the lizard lips. So we know that what's coming is going to be a lie. And we get the stall first, the So he's trying to think of how to word this. You'll notice that once again we've got the increased blink rate happening. And he comes out with, the vehicle didn't move till the next morning. Again, he's challenging her while he says that. So as he's saying the next morning, he is glaring straight at her. It's not the same as these looks that he was doing in the past, where he was kind of doing this sideways glance at his audience to check that they were buying his story. This is a really challenging kind of glare. Don't question me on this. This is my story. You have to accept it. Note he refers to the vehicle. Now, he's established what the vehicle is by saying that they pulled into the driveway just before 4 o'clock. And we know that the vehicle that pulled into the driveway just before 4 o'clock was Malaya's vehicle. So he's basically avoiding telling the truth here by switching the narrative to talking about Malaya's vehicle and not referring to any other vehicle. So we pulled into the driveway just before 4 o'clock. You all know that we pulled into the driveway in Malaya's white SUV. So now, having established that's the vehicle that I'm talking about, I'm now going to say the vehicle did not move till the next morning. You're going to think that I am saying that I didn't go anywhere after that. No vehicles left the property. But that's not what he's saying. He's saying Malaya's vehicle didn't leave till the next morning. And he's giving her that glare that challenges her to say, don't question this. This is my narrative. This is how I'm going to tell it. And of course, this isn't the first time that he's used this little bit of wordsmithing stuff when talking about a vehicle leaving the property. He avoids addressing the actual issue. He is being very evasive and he's being deceptive in his choice of language. He's done this 2 or 3 times before. He has never outright said that he never left the property in his vehicle.
Until I got in it and then went searching for Lily and Jack that morning when Malaya was on dispatch, or contacted dispatch.
So it's quite clear here that he has shifted the focus onto Malaya's SUV. And we know that that's not the vehicle that Brad Wong was talking about. But of course the goal here is to use this little bit of misinformation to convince his audience that he never left the property. To convince them that it wasn't him driving around in the middle of the night. I think this type of gaslighting is something that just comes naturally to him. This would have been how he interacted with Malaya during their relationship. So, on the occasions where she may have confronted him over things, he would have done the same sort of thing as what he's doing here, to shift the focus slightly to deflect from the actual truth. So here he's shifted the focus to Malaya's SUV not having left the yard after they returned home on Thursday, to make it look like he is in fact saying that Brad Wong's story and Justin's story are wrong, and that he never went out doing those trips in the early hours of the morning. So he's essentially trying to convince his audience that he is saying, yeah, no, it wasn't me, I didn't do it, even though what he's done is actually deflect and introduced Malaya's vehicle when all of us know that that's not the vehicle that was discussed. And there's no doubt that he is referring specifically to Malaya's vehicle here, because after initially establishing that this is the same vehicle they returned home in on Thursday afternoon, he then continues talking about going out searching in that vehicle during the morning. So his entire narrative here is purely about Malaya's SUV. There's no other vehicle contained in this discussion. There's no reference whatsoever to his own vehicle. And then he gives himself away, because he says that this happened while Malaya was on dispatch, and then corrects it to, or contacted dispatch. He has to correct himself because grammatically it is just completely wrong. He's misworded it. So what is happening here? First of all, he's so focused on getting out the information about Malaya's vehicle, he's so focused on choosing his words, that he's offering this denial without technically lying, that of course when he's talking about Malaya phoning dispatch, he's not really focusing on the words there, because that's not what is important to him. That's not the focus of the story. The entire focus is to debunk the theory of the vehicle leaving the property overnight and doing those runs. So because he's so heavily focused on his narrative, that's when you get this sentence that doesn't really make sense. And this is always one of those things you need to pay attention to when you're listening to someone, because it generally does signal deception. The moment the grammar just falls apart, there is some deception going on there. the focus isn't on telling something factual, something real, but on focusing on specific things that they're trying to deceive you with. And then, of course, needing to correct himself the way like he did shows us that he's so very focused on how his words are coming out. So even though it's come out wrong initially, he's so focused about making sure that he chooses the right wording for what he's saying here, that when he realises that he made this slight grammatical error, he's so fixated on saying things the right way to deceive people that instead of letting it slide, he has to backtrack and correct it. All this definitely points to deception. Here he's focusing heavily on the words that he's trying to use to deflect attention onto Malaya's vehicle, even though we know that her vehicle had nothing to do with what Brad was saying. And then because he is so heavily focused on that, when he does mess up the rest of the sentence and becomes aware of it, he has to correct it because he's still got that focus on making sure he's saying the right words. And his brain hasn't stopped and said, actually, you don't have to worry about getting these words exact. Now, I noticed something else that's really telling. When he talks about Malaya calling dispatch, after he says, while she was on dispatch, you see the lizard lips happen. So he says, when Malaya was on dispatch, and then you get the lizard lips before he says, or contacted dispatch, like when he corrects himself. But it's not his regular lizard lips coming out the front. This is what we've seen one time before, and I think it was this interview as well, when instead of the normal lizard lips, what we do get instead is we see the tongue come out the very corner of his mouth. When it's asymmetrical like that, it is showing contempt. So, of course, the question is, what is that contempt aimed at? Where is it directed? It seems that it is directed at Malaya, and by extension, it appears to be directed specifically at her contacting dispatch. And after he corrects himself and says, or contacted dispatch, he then gets this expression on his face. His lips lock, and you see his cheek muscles on one side of his face clench. Again, we've got the asymmetry going on, which again suggests contempt. So it seems like he is showing contempt for Malaya ringing dispatch, which begs the question, did she stray from the plan? Was she not supposed to have rang dispatch that soon? So if that is the situation, here's a little bit of speculation for you. According to Janie's narrative, she came outside from her RV and saw Malaya in the driveway. And according to her narrative, this was when Daniel was already out, allegedly searching. We know that Malaya tried to ring Cindy at like 8:30 or 8:38 that morning, but the call wasn't answered. Is it possible that it hadn't been the plan for her to ring dispatch at that time, and that she rang dispatch while Daniel was out from the property, intention of giving them a story that was maybe closer to the truth? Because if this body language from Daniel is in fact showing contempt over Malaya contacting dispatch at that time, then it would certainly suggest that that's not how they planned it. And if that's the case, then it would also seem logical to think that the story she was going to give the RCMP when she made that call could have been closer to the truth, and that maybe she was interrupted. I do believe that Malaya knows what happened to her children. However, and I've said this multiple times, given how controlling Daniel is, I doubt very much that she would know where he took them. He does make that weird reference to sending her a photo from his phone when he was allegedly out searching, which seems really odd to me, and I wonder if that is connected to where Jack and Lily might be. But is it possible that having witnessed whatever happened to her children, and initially having been gaslit by Daniel into believing that she was responsible or that she would be blamed for it and she would be the one who would be prosecuted, that With him being absent from the property that morning, she may have had a moment of clarity and originally thought she was going to ring the RCMP about what happened, but was then interrupted either by Janie catching her out or Daniel returning to the property. That said, this wouldn't explain her silence over the past 9 months, because I still don't believe that she has cooperated with the RCMP based on her written statement to please bring me home, and based on what we've heard from the people in her inner circle, because they seem to believe that she knows nothing about what happened to her children. Although we do know that even after she left with Cindy, that Daniel was using other people like Durwood and Logan to get at her. So after the call to dispatch, is it possible that Daniel made sure through psychological manipulation that she stayed quiet? Because we know there were several instances in that first month or so when he specifically made statements to media that could well have been interpreted by Malaya as a threat that she was the one who was going to go down for this. And we know that Durwood was sticking his bib in, and it's quite possible that Daniel was using Durwood to get at Malaya. It sounds like Durwood was feeding information to Malaya through Hayden, using Hayden when Hayden didn't even know. It sounds like Logan was continuing to try and contact Malaya. So I could imagine that an effort from Daniel's family was the reason Malaya stayed quiet. Anyway, that is pure speculation. There's nothing solid that suggests that. But it certainly does seem that Daniel is showing contempt over Malaya ringing the RCMP at the time that she did, and I find that really, really interesting.